Good evening and welcome to Face to Face for the Newsfirst team. I'm Niresh Eliathambi. My guest tonight is Mr. Manjula Gajanayake, who is the Executive Director of IRES, which is, of course, the Institute for Democratic Reform and Electoral Studies. Good evening and welcome, Manjula. How are you?
Good evening. Thanks for having me for this program.
Right. So it's been a while since you came on the program, and that's because we haven't had any elections in about 3 months. But as you and I were discussing a few minutes ago before the show, whatever changes need to be made to modernize our electoral systems need to be made now. You don't wait until 6 months before the election and then scramble around and then say, oh, it's too late to make these changes now. So we need to identify what needs to be done and make those changes. Changes to electoral laws, changes to procedures, it may be the nomination forms, whatever. Right, so let's start off, Manjula. Let me ask you, what gaps have we identified after having 3 consecutive elections? What is it we have learned?
Yeah, thanks. I think it is a very timely topic as well as the discussion. Then, because you know that the Mr. Niresh, you and I always have experience that most of rulers and political parties are trying to change the electoral system, reform the whole electioneering closer to elections always, because they know that that is the only way to postpone the elections, because if they are not popular enough, then it is the doses that change in the postpone the elections, that's the launch in the electoral reform process. But I guess that assume this is the correct time, because we are heading to another elections, one last elections, provincial council elections, but we don't know what is going on, but we know that the government is trying to hold the elections. However, non-election time period is more suitable to start the reform agenda. Even before that, the main thing is, when you are asking gaps, let me to say that even digging more details regarding the gaps of electoral system currently, but the more important that what I have done in earlier time, you know that we have appointed 2 parliamentary select committees earlier, as well as 2 or 3 delimitation committees. One is commission, and other one is lastly they appointed the presidential commission to oversee the matters of electoral systems under the chairmanship of former CJ Presidential Council Prasad Deb. Then we have more than 4 reports, more than 4 comprehensive reports, right? Then it would be better if we can read comprehensively what has included in those reports.
Now have these reports, these 4 reports, have they been released to the public?
Except one report, other 3 are in public domain. The one is the Prasad Deb's report, but it has not published yet. That is another problem, no? That there are many committees and commissions appointed, but unfortunately we don't know what are included in those reports.
Well, generally, Manjula, these commissions and committees are very good in their in the depth that they go into. They make some very astute recommendations. We have, of course, presidential commissions and committees and parliamentary select committees for everything. But what happens is that the hard work that they do doesn't get translated or transformed into action. And sometimes for months or years, or they're never actioned at all. So we need to get into this habit as a nation, that when a commission presents a report and it's presented with much fanfare to the president, press releases and news items and all that, but then what's in the report is it goes by the wayside.
Yeah, totally under the carpet. Yeah.
So I mean, so many incredible judges and political leaders and lawyers and researchers are on those committees and commissions. So I mean, first and foremost, what's in those reports? What have they identified, and what are we doing about it? Because if we are going to ignore those recommendations, well, then what's the point of having commissions and committees?
Yeah, I think the basic problem is the intention, no? That the most of time, maybe actually the intention wasn't good, because as I mentioned earlier, most of them were trying to postpone the election. That is the basic idea. Let's take an example that the delimitation committee appointed before the local government election under the chairmanship of Mr. Mahinda Deshapriya. At that time, there was even that issue is still pending. That the most of people are blaming that there are more local government members, more than 8,700. Then some are suggesting to reduce up to 5,000. Then that is the genuine idea. Maybe most of people had that time, but at that time there was a committee that they appointed to reduce members up to 5,000, but they have not released the report. But I think they have reduced members from 8,000 to 5,000. Basic thing is actually there's no political will and intention to reform the process, just to postpone the election. That is the basic rationale. And other thing is, you came up with a valid point that the most of genuine academic people have included into those reports, those committees. Then don't they have any I mean the genuine idea to, I mean, once they accepted the position, actually there should be a ending process. If they have, the government or any entity is not revealing the inclusions, I mean the content of the reports, it is up to them also to raise their voice, no? All the academics and expert committee members are totally in sound sleep. They are not raising their voice. At least there are, I totally accept, there were many experts in those committees and presidential commissions even. However, any of government, if government is not implementing those things, actually they are not coming up with the question. That is something necessity, because they should have a personality to raise their voice.
Now, on that point, Manjula, there was a time a couple of decades ago when we journalists would quietly get hold of these commission reports through our own ways and means, and then tell the public what's in them. And the party in power would go berserk, of course, because they didn't want it released. That is the case not just for electoral reform, but for many other aspects, so many commissions. But you can't really blame the commissioners and the committee members, because their job is to investigate and to recommend, to analyze and to recommend, and then it is up to the president or the parliament to release these things, or whatever, whether it's the elections commission or whatever. So if they chose to hide it, then the whole exercise is one of a cover up or futility, or just simply kicking the can down the road.
And Mr. Niresh, that my point is that, you know, that when it comes to elections, right, government can appoint, government can select many experts and the personalities, well-known popular characters into the committee, into those committees. Okay, then the whole society will think that they will do their job. Okay, then there's a well acceptance. But unfortunately, even any government can use them to postpone the elections. Then they also contributed to postpone the elections.
But let me point something out. the law of the land is what exists today. It is not what existed 30 years ago. It is not what will exist next year or the year after. Now we are waiting for a new constitution. We have been waiting since 1994 for a new constitution. Professor G.L. Piris and his committee actually wrote a new one and it didn't get passed. So we've been waiting more than 30 years. That doesn't mean that we can ignore the present constitution. We have to go by that. So now you spoke about this postponement of elections. I would put it to you that that is one of the main gaps that we have in our electoral process, because ruling parties very often use powers that they don't even have to postpone elections. I mean, the Supreme Court was very clear about the postponement of the local government election. It's illegal. But we need to now, when it takes a while for the Supreme Court to give its judgments. So then it's too late. So we need a system. Now this is don't you think this is a gap? Now where we need a system where yes, the election will be held, because we don't have any other excuses now. We are not at war. We have the money. There's no excuses at all.
It is true, that even today our topic, that modernizing electoral system, modernizing is something, modernizing means something, making something more suitable, present or future, by updating, right? Then in that sense, when it comes to the electoral process, I always have a mixed feelings, because that the Election Commission have touched some areas like related to the election dispute resolution mechanism. They have introduced EDR mobile app, as well as that using some kind of digital platforms like that. But as you correctly mentioned, yes, the main gap is the powers vested with the Election Commission, because there's no election calendar. That's why always rulers can.
But we absolutely need an election calendar, because we as citizens, that's our sovereignty. That is actually the only place where we exercise our sovereignty, when we go and vote for a candidate or candidates of our choice. So if we don't even know when we can exercise that sovereignty, then there is no sovereignty, because the sovereignty is being delayed and pushed down the road according to the whims and fancies of a party or one single president. So we've seen that happen in the past so many times,
and then also violating your basic rights, human rights.
So that what do we mean when, I mean, the Constitution says the people are sovereign? What does that even mean? And that means we get to select.
The other point is that that last time, usually election campaign is taking much longer time, maybe 3 months, 2 months or 3 months time, right? Lastly, then we faced almost not 3, actually 4 elections, right, including local authority election of Alpitiya Pradeshya Sabha. Then almost 9 months, that the 3 months multiply three times. Then what will happen, that you have to postpone the development process also, because you can't make forward any of development process under the participation of politicians, political authority in that time. If we have election calendar, then we know in this time period there will be an election. Therefore, we know how to make strategies, avoiding such time period. Then not wasting time, as well as strategically we can use the time frame.
Right. And now you spoke about the delimitation. Now this is again a very obtuse, confusing sort of thing. Delimitation is basically you are redrawing the electoral map, and also you are changing the number of candidates. So now this is something that needs to be done. You need to have delimitation, because the population changes from The number of voters in the Trincomalee district this year is not the same 5 years from now.
Yeah.
So you know, those things have to be reflected. And for example, Colombo used to be the largest district. It is not. For I think about a decade now, Gampaha is the largest district. So you have to reflect that.
And giving bonus member seats also.
Exactly. But that doesn't mean that until a delimitation committee sits and deliberates and gives a decision, that you can't have elections.
Yeah.
Your elections have to be held, but as and when the reports come, they should be actioned by Parliament or by the Commission or whoever. So this premise that the delimitation requires us to postpone elections is absolutely false, don't you think?
You are correct. Under the second Republican Constitution of Sri Lanka, there is a well-constituted delimitation commission, right? But in Sri Lankan situation is none of government is given the responsibility to demarcate boundaries under that well-constituted delimitation commission. You know that there is a well-known famous delimitation committee appointed under the chairmanship of former district secretary Ravi Gajanayake. At that time he wasn't represent the delimitation commission, right? Because you know that at that time government is thinking that political authority is thinking that they can negotiate to the process, but not with the commission but with the committee. That's the problem. But the major thing is that when it comes to the provincial council elections, we don't have provincial council election right now. It is totally disappeared. The reason is the delimitation committee. That in that time actually there was a 5-member delimitation committee appointed by the government. They gave a time frame of 4 months. They were able to completed the report within 4 months time. As an election commissioner, as an election observer, I strongly believe that report is so strong and comprehensive report. But it is not with the intention of government, because at that time Yahapalana government, they wanted to postpone the election.
Then where's that report?
Then they defeated the report. Now it also disappeared. According to the law number 17 of 2017 Provincial Council Amendment Act, then if you neglected that such kind of delimitation report, there should be a review committee. At that time there was a review committee.
We have committee upon committee.
Yeah, upon committee under the chairmanship of Prime Minister. As I heard through RTI application, there was only one meeting convened by the Prime Minister. At that time they have not discussed.
This is just fooling around with our sovereignty, isn't it?
Definitely.
That's all it is. That is all it is. Now let's so clearly something has to be done, and the delimitation should not be an excuse for not having elections. Otherwise we'll never have elections. And you know, we wouldn't have had the last 3 elections if that excuse were true.
Yeah.
Right. Now let's talk about a few other things. In other countries, many other democracies, you have early voting, which is open to all. In many countries, it's for like 30 days. If you want to go and vote early, you can do so.
Yes.
Now, in Sri Lanka, we have postal voting.
Yeah.
But that is open not to all. It is open only to a select few. That is, if you are an employee of the government, of a government department, of certain corporations. I think the Bank of Ceylon and the People's Bank. So why only the Bank of Ceylon and People's Bank? What about the private banks, for goodness sake? What's the difference? The excuse is that Bank of Ceylon and People's Bank staff need to work even on the election day. Well, so do the other bankings, the staff of other banks. So do journalists. So do election observers. We all need to vote.
Journalists like you?
Exactly. So in that case, why isn't it opened out? And we don't need postal voting, just have it over 2 or 3 days even, or a week. We don't need a month, but that early voting should be available.
Yeah.
In some countries, the early voting has resulted in 50 or 60% of people voting before the actual final day of voting.
Yeah.
So if other countries can do it, why can't we? And similar countries, Commonwealth countries, have this. What's the hold up here?
It is the biggest gap. I think I assume that the biggest gap of our electoral system when it comes to not last election, the parliamentary election 2020 held in 2020. You know that the almost 4 million were excluded from the process because
you're talking about overseas voters.
Overseas out of 4 million.
Let's talk about overseas voters after the break.
Yeah,
what about those in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, out of those 4 million, almost 3 million are out of the country, but at least minimum 1 million are in 1 million voters are in the country. Then they have excluded in that list. You know that, as you mentioned correctly, that journalists, observers, not only that, you know that the prisoners, the patients who are in the hospitals on election day, right, many persons. Even you mentioned that the postal voting out of nearly 1.7 million state workers, the public officials, out of 1.7 million, the postal voting is given only for 600, maximum 700,000 public officials only, who are supporting to the electoral process, elections during campaign period and election day. That's the scenario. I always believe that in Sri Lankan law, you know that this law made in 1980s, then totally out, not totally, I mean partially outdated. We need to update. When modernizing our electoral system, we need to update, right, our not only the process, even law. Then when creation of this law in 1980s, most of especially parliamentary laws, giving that providing postal voting opportunities is just like a privilege, right? It's a privilege job. Then now, as you correctly mentioned, in other countries it is not a privilege. No, it is equal right. It is coming under the equal rights. But in Sri Lanka, Sri Lankan policymakers and election officials are still thinking that those lines. That's unfortunate. And in that way, actually, I believe that if you can change the law, as well as if you have a willingness to do that, it is not a difficult job. It's a difficult task. You can do it.
Right. I am in conversation with Manjula Gajanayake, Executive Director of IRIS, and we're going to take a short commercial break right now. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
The representative head of state of Australia, Her Excellency the Honourable Miss Sam Mostyn, Governor-General of the Commonwealth of Australia, the first Governor-General of Australia to visit Sri Lanka, in an exclusive long-form interview with Siobhan Daniel.
How can the two nations come closer, in what areas, that we can both reach our goals and achieve our dreams?
We do have shared values, and particularly now with the push against corruption, with making sure that everything is done according to the rules-based system. Australia believes very much in the rules-based system of how our nations should work and the relationship with others around the world.
Wednesday the 13th of August at 8 p.m. on TV1.
The stage is set.
That's the way to start a World Cup!
As 8 nations compete for the ultimate prize in cricket.
This is unbelievable!
With the world's best travelling to India and Sri Lanka in the pursuit of cricketing glory.
They have etched their names in history.
The ICC Women's Cricket World Cup 2025 begins 30th of September.
Welcome back to Face to Face. I'm in conversation with Manjula Gajanayake, who is the Executive Director of IRIS. Now, Manjula, you spoke of 4 million Sri Lankans who are unable to vote. About 1 million of them in Sri Lanka because of the jobs that they are doing. We covered that, but what about the 3 million who are overseas? Now, again, many democracies have worked to enable their overseas citizens to vote. Having said that, not every democracy has high numbers or high percentages of their voters living overseas. But we do.
Yeah.
We have 3 million out of our 21 million population.
Yeah.
And that's 3 million adults. Which is basically, I mean, there are only about 17 million voters, correct?
Yeah.
So when you have that, so many, that's a high percentage.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we wonder why only 65% of the people have voted, eligible voters, or 70%. Well, that's because about 25% are overseas and they are not allowed to vote.
Yeah.
So when we say 65% low voter turnout, no, it's actually, it's probably 90%
Yes.
who are actually voting,
Yeah.
who are here and are able to vote, are given the opportunity. Now, what are the systems which other countries are employing in order to enable, to empower those voters who are overseas?
You know that in 2005, the Philippines, I'm talking on global south, global north, that we can talk about that actually they are using many of an innovative methods
Right,
to
but let's
enable.
say, let's say global south,
global
countries which are like ours, where we can, we don't need to spend a lot of money, but if other countries like ours, similar countries can do it, then we can as well, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to have a parliamentary committee on science and technology and figure out some new app or something. Other countries are doing it. So you were talking about the Philippines.
You mentioned about the parliamentary committees. There were 2 parliamentary committees actually. You know that last time in the 2016 and after that 2021, there were 2 parliamentary committees. They also suggested not any methods. They just said that the election commission should oversee these matters. Only that, then election commission didn't come up with any concrete proposals to enable these overseas voters.
You don't need a parliamentary committee or 2 parliamentary committees to say that, because you and I are saying it right here, and I'm sure most people will agree with us. So the point is the methodology, which in itself needs to be foolproof. It needs to be, you shouldn't have a method where you have the election and then everybody will be pointing fingers and saying, well, there's a lot of vote rigging through this particular system. But how does the Philippines do it? How do other countries do it?
Yeah. Before that, let me to say that the overall, I mean, the total number of voters may be more than 3 million. Maybe last time, few months ago, I submitted a RTI application. According to the RTI application, many of government agencies replied. When gathering all the details, I assume that there will be more than 3 million, 3.2 million Sri Lankans are 3.2 million. Out of 3.2 million, almost 2.4 million are in Middle East countries. Then that's the demarcation, the demography of out of country voters. When it comes to 2005, the Philippines is the very first country that introduced a comprehensive package for enable out of country voters in 2005. In that time, actually, they used some of methods, that's personal voting, because they have foreign missions. Then they invited, first they had a comprehensive voter registration process. Then they invited to get registered under their system. Then at that time, as I remember, more than 500,000 Philippine voters got registered under that system. After that, they promoted the personal voting at that time. but high cost voting system at that time, but 25 to in between 25 to 30% voters were voted at that time, but it was the very first time.
But let me just interrupt here. You mentioned high cost, but we are spending 10 to 12 billion rupees on an election. So if you need to spend another billion on a new system which will enable the voters who are overseas to exercise their sovereign right, I think it's well worth it.
Totally agreed, because if we are applying personal voting, basically centric that choosing the foreign missions, then we need to send our election officers. More than that, you know, during the campaign period there should be an equal right for all the political parties and other independent groups to campaign. Then there should be a campaign mechanism. Then any of government should promote that also. That's why we need money. But you know that after that, Philippine in this last time also actually, then they applied this method, and Philippine is a country that good example actually we can apply. When it comes to Sri Lanka, the problem is that Sri Lanka is not a data and statistic friendly country. If you are asking that right now, how many Sri Lankans are working both skilled and unskilled, then you will not get correct data and statistics. Before you are introducing any of method, you need finest data set statistics. But unfortunately, we don't have, right?
Now I agree with you and I disagree with you. Number one, we do have data and statistics, but we hide it. If you go to the Grama Niladhari of any Grama Niladhari division, they know through word of mouth, through the village gossips, okay, that person is in Kuwait, this person, the son is in Australia studying, and so on and so forth. So they know, they have the numbers. That you know, it's a basic thing. And most of these GN officers, Grama Niladhari officers, do have some form of computerization. So they do have the information. It simply hasn't been collated into one.
Yes, central database.
I mean, can you imagine a Grama Niladhari who doesn't know, you know, that person has gone to Saudi Arabia or come back from Dubai or whatever. They do know. So that is there. And then on the other side, each of these countries has data. If you ask the government of Australia how many Sri Lankan students are studying in universities in Australia, they'll tell you. They'll tell you in a minute, because it's there. Because each university reports to their respective state governments and then to the federal government, and it's there. If you ask the United States the same question, you'll get that answer. Down to the absolute. If it's 20,321, they will tell you exactly that.
Definitely.
So the same with workers. If you come in on a work visa, you know, of course, Saudi Arabia knows exactly how many Sri Lankans are present right now in that country on work visas. So we can easily get that data. Our government can get the data from other governments.
It is, I think, Mr. Niresh, that you know that it is an inherent problem in Sri Lanka. We don't have an central database, centralized database of voters. I mean, yes, Election Commission is updating, but the lacuna is that the updating most such kind of data. So you know that the Foreign Bureau, one side, they have another data set, and foreign missions, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, as well as Election Commission. Then if there's a process mechanism, even census, no, that the Department of Statistics and Census, they do correct data and they are updating, but then there's no incorporation and the cooperation in between Election Commission and such departments. There's no interconnections. That's the problem actually. Then if they can create such a centralized database, then problem will be sorted.
Manjula, it's also a matter of do our authorities want to know, because I mean, I'll give you an example from a journalist point of view. Let's say there's an earthquake in country A, and we hear that thousands of people have unfortunately died in the earthquake. We as journalists, the first thing we check is, are there any Sri Lankans there? And we try our best to find out. Now, we do ask our foreign the foreign ministry, who will contact that mission. Maybe they know, maybe they don't know. We'll ask the Bureau of Foreign Employment, but we also ask that country's mission here to please try to find, and they will contact their government, and they'll say, okay, there's so many Sri Lankans in that country at this particular time. So it's a matter of, do we want to know or don't want to know?
Yeah, it is true.
So I think, government knows everything about us. Believe me, they know absolutely everything about us, Manjula, okay? And you don't have to be a journalist or an activist to get in the files of the government. They do know. It's a matter of, does the relevant authority want to do a job of work, basically. So now, if we were to roll out a mechanism for our voters overseas, how long would it take?
Yeah, that the registration process will take, maybe 6 months, in between 6 months to 1 year, because
you have to give a time period for people, right?
and also that there may be an illegal migrants also. No, they may have some hesitant to get registered.
But let's keep them out of this.
Yes. Then at least we need 1 month to 12 months time.
Okay, but now that we are brainstorming, why can't this be operational at BIA, at Bandaranaike International Airport? You're going overseas to work. You'll be out for 2 years or 3 years. Fine. Register at BIA.
Yeah.
Simple. Because you might, if you're in Saudi Arabia, our embassy is in Riyadh, but you may be in another city. So, and to get leave and go to our embassy and so on will take some time just to register. So the registration will be rather painful. But why not do it right here?
Definitely. According to my knowledge, that per day there will be nearly 11,000 passengers will leave in from Katunayake Airport. Out of 11,000, nearly 5,500 as an average Sri Lankans are leaving from the airport. Then yes, if there's such a centralized focal point, then we can do it easily. It is number one. Number two is that identifying a suitable method. That most of countries are using some kind of, that you may have experienced that if there's an election in Maldives or any other countries, there's a ballot box in the mission, their foreign mission in Sri Lanka, no? That
absolutely,
Maldivians can go and vote.
Because I think there are over 10,000 Maldivians in Colombo at any given moment. They are going to school here, they are in our universities, and some of them are working here as well. So they are here, and their families are here. So the Maldivian government has enabled it, but we haven't.
But and another option is that that the global north is basically using email and other digital platforms, and also it is coming under the absentee votes and early voting. Then they can use they can send their ballots using postal facilities. Then such kind of systems are there, but first we need to identify which method we can use to attract our voters. Then my suggestion is that that then again you can question that whether it is violating the equal rights of citizen, but that the out of 3.2 million, I already mentioned, more than 2.4 million are living in Middle East countries, working in Middle East countries. First of all, actually it would be better if we can apply this not for the Middle East people, right, workers. It is very difficult. I mean, we have to research, we have to do more research in that area, but other skilled workers are in other countries. As a pilot, why we can't start it? then immediately we can start with, because if necessary we can use digital platforms also, even in email, because most of skilled workers are working not Middle East, in other countries. As a pilot, we can start at the first phase, attracting those people. After that,
I mean, you can start with London or New York or Sydney.
Definitely. At least why we can't give the chances for the people who are working in foreign missions as a pilot project? Then at least we should start from somewhere, no? Then in that way we can do something.
So there has to be a political will to do this, and it's not the political leaders, it is the civil servants who are in charge of our electoral processes. Now, Manjula, when we have an election, and we had 3 of them back to back, where are the reports on these elections? Because an election is a project where you have 12, 14 million people involved in that project, fine. But where's the post project report? If you get what I mean, if you build a highway, there is a report afterwards. There's an environmental one, there's a construction one, there's a financial one. These reports need to come out. So what about an election? Because we need to know, was there sufficient money? Was the funding enough? Was the manpower enough? What issues did voters have? What issues did the observers have? And we have observing teams from local ones such as yours, plus overseas. What happens to all of that? Do we get these reports, and are they acted upon? Because they will identify the gaps.
It is another valid question, Mr. Niresh, that there are 2 or 3 parties that need to submit reports. The first is election management body. It is Election Commission of Sri Lanka, and others are international communities like Commonwealth and EU and ANFREL.
But those give their reports very quickly.
They have published. Yes. They have published, and both of us also attended some of launching ceremonies. No, then and local missions. Local missions, exactly that. Of course, that PAFREL and other organizations. I think. Even including IRIS, we have submitted only the interim reports, and final reports are underway. But the election commission, when it comes to election commission, it is always delay. There's a delay, right? That you may not believe that the last local government election, not this time actually, in 2018, it was held on 10th February 2018. They published their local government report in 2023. Right, it took almost 5
years for a report. My goodness.
Yes. Then reforming process, modernizing process, it is all about updating, right? The things they should need to update, but unfortunately, actually, we don't have on-time reports.
That report is obsolete. It's referring to an event which took place 5 years before. So the report itself is garbage at that point.
Definitely. Right. Then almost outdated.
And I mean, we need to find out how many elderly people voted. And if it's a low figure, why is that? Because now the Election Commission proudly announces, yes, we have enabled for elderly and differently abled people to come and vote. But what's the percentage? How many actually were able to vote? And was it a smooth process? Now, I personally, at the last election, I saw at my polling booth, there was this lady who was 95 years old. And yes, she was brought in by her relatives, but then the relatives were not allowed to be with her. And she was unable to stand on her own.
Even identifying symbols, no?
Exactly. So there needs to be a smoother process there. And if the reports are not coming out in time, what's the point?
That's why I earlier told, actually, that Sri Lanka is not a data-driven country. I mean, not friendly for data and statistics. The Election Commission, they will merely say that the percentage of youth as well as women, but unfortunately they are not releasing on time real time data. That is another thing. If you are going to reform the process, you need to have such finer set of data. But when it comes to election commission, not only that, even how many things you can do through the reports, that data sets. But the election commission, even we are struggling to get such kind of data from election commission. Then you know that the election commission is managing elections, everything is okay, but when it comes to updating systems as well as using new technologies and providing more data, such kind of data is actually, I don't think that they are in good in standard level.
No, Manjula, a lot of people who do work with the election commission, such as yourself, you all praise the commission, which is, I mean, the commission is doing. It's not an easy task.
Yes,
it's difficult, and the people there do work hard, and they want to see elections run properly. But one thing that we always get is the feedback that there isn't enough money. There aren't enough resources.
Yes.
The structure of the commission itself is not conducive. For example, there's no proper legal department which
Yes.
can file cases against transgressors. Like if the politicians, the candidates don't submit their financial reports on time, then I believe that the Attorney General's department has to get involved, the police
They
have to
have
get
other matters
involved.
to
You know, what's the point? Why overcomplicate when you can very well have a legal department right there which can file action?
Yeah.
Maybe that needs a change in the law, but surely here's a government which can change the law very, very quickly.
Not only that, you know that once you may remember that the once Commissioner General of Election, Mr. Manjula Gajanayake, informed general public that they had only 400 computers. All the 400 computers are outdated right now. Now still they have not replaced it, right? Then they are way far behind to use modern equipments. It's one thing, and another thing is that you know that when that it is traditional bureaucracy, right? Then still some of officers are working like departmental mindset. Then they are intentionally forgetting that, you know, that they are forgetting that they are representing an one of most powerful independent commissions of Sri Lanka. They can think and generate new ideas, but we can't see such they are generating new ideas in most of times. That's the another problem, no? Then when it comes to the attracting people, right, then traditional bureaucracy under this cadre system in public service, I think you will not paid well when you are working in new media or new technologies, right? Then they have to think in another level to attract people and paid well. But unfortunately, we don't see that. If there's any local mission or international organization supporting, then they will do it. Now they have a well-equipped studio with election commission, but it is not government funded, but another international organization funded for that. In that way, they are upgrading, but as you mentioned, that government sponsorship is very lack in this moment.
Right, and I'm afraid we are out of time. It's been a wonderful discussion, Manjula, and we certainly identified a lot of common sense gaps which we saw over the last 3 elections, and we definitely have realized that Sri Lanka needs to get with the program when it comes to global best practices in elections. My thanks to Manjula Gajanayake, who is the Executive Director of IRIS, the Institute for Democratic Reform and Electoral Studies. Thank you for being with me this evening, Manjula. And thank you to you at home. Don't go away because the news is coming up next, as always. Take care and good night.